Texas.
Thank you. And I don't know of anybody on either side of the aisle that feels like women should be making less than men. I don't know that we need an equal rights amendment to justify or even to, well, it shouldn't be to justify inequality in wages. It ought to be equal, period. But having heard at this hearing that sex in the Equal Rights Amendment includes gender identity, which we know absolutely is not an immutable difference. It's a difference that sometimes someone feels one way, even has sex change operation, later feels another way. Happens frequently. I have friends that have been from one side to another. It does create issues, and as someone who has sat repeatedly as a judge in sexual assault cases, and I've heard the testimony and I've read the medical data, that women are much more likely to suffer, who have been the victim of sexual assault, are many times more likely to suffer from PTSD than male soldiers are. And there's different theories for why that is. And that a woman in a private area, like for, say, example, a restroom, are confronted by what absolutely appears to be a man by all external appearances, is caused to suffer that trauma all over again. I can't fathom wanting to see something passes that forces women over and over against their will in private areas to face men from all biological ways of determining and suffering those traumas again. So I have grave concerns about that. Without an ERA, women will hopefully not be forced into that. With an ERA, from what we've heard today, they will be forced into that. And having lived through the debates over Obamacare and having seen the data indicating that a certain size tumor is found in the UK and in the United States before Obamacare, the U.S. person, whether poor or wealthy, had a 20% chance of better of surviving than someone in the UK. And if somebody that comes from a home of women, I don't want to see somebody die among my family simply because we adopted some kind of socialized medicine. And as someone who fled Cuba said earlier this morning in a meeting, he forewent the opportunity to have free education and free health care to risk life to get to a place where there wasn't free health care and free education. But Professor Foley, some claim the ERA has wide popular support. If that's so, can you explain why people are pushing this method of reopening the ERA instead of just saying, let's re-offer it, let's get a new time of termination and start all over again? Why is that if it's so popular?
Yeah, I mean, it is a good question. I mean, I don't know the answer. I can speculate. My guess is based on what the proponents are saying today. And I see two themes, okay? And this is from a person, again, who, if you ask me in the abstract if I were a member of Congress, if I would support a proposed ERA in the right procedural way, the answer would be yes. I'm a woman, okay? But would I support it knowing that these sort of sub rosa agendas are being articulated by its proponents today? That would cause me to hesitate. Those two sub rosa goals seem to be, number one, I think trying to entrench abortion and give it a new constitutional status, because there is concern that the new Supreme Court, which is leaning more to the right, is going to roll back some of the protections for abortion. So that concern exists. I think it's probably valid given the fact that the Supreme Court has become more conservative. And I think what they would like to do is sort of have an ERA in there so that it would breathe new life into the right to abortion. Maybe not now with the current conservative court, but certainly laying the seed for the future that regulations of abortion, late-term abortions, things right now that are passing constitutional muster, maybe later on wouldn't on the basis of that amendment. That's one possibility, and you see them articulate that themselves, so it is what it is. Second thing is, I find it a little bit ironic as a woman that one of the other big sort of sets of proponents of the amendment is the LGBTQ community. I understand why they want it. And I think you've heard from the three members of the panel that they think that if the ERA was passed, that on the basis of sex would include transgender LGBT rights. And I find that a little bit ironic because remember, I mean, we've been historically talking about women's rights, and now I think we're moving a little bit beyond that. So I think that those are the two things I think that give members of Congress concern.
Thank you. I yield back.